Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and I'm here today to talk to you about the hardest reading challenge you will ever do, 2.0. HRCYED, as this is known in short form, is brought to us by Q at QWordy, and it is a year-long reading challenge. It starts on the 7th of July and goes for a full year till July 6th of next year, if I'm not mixing up my dates. And it is intentionally meant to be difficult. I was intrigued to check this out. I did not participate in the first year, but watching the announcement for year 2, I feel like this is partly something that I will hit largely naturally for some of the prompts, but also a good push on some of the prompts that I really would appreciate wanting to read for anyway. So with that, we're not going to do a full TBR for every prompt on the board, but I did want to talk a little bit about what my plans are, put it out into the world that I'm planning to do this, so I make sure that I'm continually filling in my spreadsheet, submitting for prompts, and just kind of keeping up with this so I don't get to the end of the year and have 100 books left to read. That would be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my spreadsheet and screen record that so you can follow along, see what I'm seeing, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about my plans. So first of all, I will say that this spreadsheet is absolute spreadsheet goals. It has so many great uses of functionality within sheets that I really appreciate. As someone who really enjoys spreadsheets, this one is indeed top tier. As you can see on my screen, there is a bingo board. It is set up to actually kind of mark off when you accomplish things. There are hyperlinks to be able to jump between different screens. And I'm just going to go ahead and go through the prompts toward the bottom. But you can see also there is a points calculator in here, and it's all laid out very well. The way the challenge works, you get prompts for any books you read, even if you're not reading for a particular prompt in the challenge, and you can use points to do things like reread a book, which normally you're not allowed to do an extra double up. So in this challenge, you can use a book for 2 things. If you have enough points, you can do 3 things. There's a few other things in there. I'm not too worried about that because I'm not a big rereader, and I like the challenge of not being able to do too much doubling up, but I am going to be using this to track things. And then there is a stats page as you start filling books in. It's got a lot of really cool stats about where you're reading things from and all of that, as long as you keep up with adding data to it. So actually talking about the prompts now, we've got by the 100s, and that just means reading a book that hits all of these minimum page numbers. And this is something that without fail, I have no doubt I'm going to do throughout the year. I read a lot of long books. I read a lot of short books. I'm not worried about this one. There is a 24-hour readathon within HRCYED that the idea is you go within 24 hours on the calendar and read as much as you can and report how much you did. I figure I will probably incorporate this in one of my normal weekend challenges where I do my random prompt and then read as much as I can during the weekend, except I'll measure 24 of those hours for this particular challenge. I don't know when I'm going to do this. It'll probably just depend on when I get a good prompt for this, but this one I don't have any worries about meeting either. The next thing that we have is subgenres. So to pick a main genre and then pick 6 subgenres. I think I'm going to go for fantasy. I haven't really 100% decided. I might switch it up to horror depending on what mood I'm in on any given day or where I need to apply books for other prompts, and maybe I have extra of one or the other. But currently I'm thinking probably fantasy, and we'll see where we go with it. And I read enough different types of fantasy and different types of horror during the year that I figure this is another one I'll probably hit pretty naturally. The series Staircase is a really fun one, and given that one of my main goals for this year is to catch up on series, this is a good one to kind of keep in mind. The idea is to read a standalone, a duology, a trilogy, and a 4 or more book series within the year. Duologies I feel like come up pretty naturally. For trilogy, I know I have the trilogy that's the second part of the Faithfallalong read-along. Since I'm a co-host for that, I have to be keeping up with that one, and we will finish in time before this reading challenge ends, so that's a great one to plug in there. That is the series, of course, by John Quinn, and it's part of the Catch Up Book Club hosted by Becca at Becca in the Books. And then for the 4 or more book series, right now I'm thinking probably Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick will satisfy that, because I am hoping to maybe pick up the first book in July, and it is a 4-book series. I binge read her Lady of Darkness series, so I feel like that would be a good one for me for this. But I also have Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman, and that is a longer series where I've read book 1, but there's more than 4 left in the series, so that also would tick this box. For award season, we need to read at least one award entrant, one semifinalist, one finalist, and one winner. And then we also have to read 3 more among any of those categories. Entrants probably the hardest, although the BookTube Awards apparently have what they call octo finalists, I believe, which are being counted as entrants, so that may give me some really good options. I definitely will be paying attention to SPIFBO again for some entrants possibly, or finalists, semifinalists that catch my attention there. And the Q who put this whole challenge together is also the author Stephanie Gillis. Her book, The Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids, was a finalist for this last round of SPIFBO, and one of the books I had on my radar to get to and didn't get to. So that's a possibility to go in this category as well. The next category is a TBR game challenge, and the idea is to use somebody else's TBR game to create a TBR and finish that TBR. This is one where I feel like at some point during the year I'm going to naturally get into this. A few of the Patreons I'm in have a tendency to use the host TBR game to do a little mini readathon during the year, or I have access to their boards from that and can use it to create a TBR at some point when I'm not in the middle of a different readathon. And there's also a few kind of readathons that have a TBR game within them that I might pick up for this as well. So this remains to be seen which one I'm going to do, but I do have several options. For the last 10 years, the idea with this one is you make sure you read one book from each of the last 10 years. And for this, it includes the current year, it could include 2026, and then going back in time. This is another one where I feel like there's a good chance I'm going to hit most of these categories pretty naturally during the year, but I'll do a mid-year check-in just to see if there are any I'm obviously missing and find something from my shelves. My idea with this one is in particular to make sure I'm pulling from my shelves, because I think I do have something from each of the last 10 years for sure somewhere in my stacks of books. Adaptations is one that I think will be a little potentially more difficult, but easier in some categories, harder in others. With this one, we need a modern retelling of a classic. That one should be easy. I read a lot of retellings. I really enjoy retellings. And then the other categories that we have are a musical, a graphic novel or comic, a play, a TV show, a web series, an animation, and a movie. And you can either watch the thing or read the thing. So you have options here. And I think I'm going to be figuring out things as I go. Probably the one I'm the most not sure about is the web series. And I know there are within the Discord attached to this challenge going to be suggestions there. So I'll probably be relying on that. If anyone has any web series that are based on books that you could recommend below, let me know. But I feel like most of these, musical, I'm not sure what that would be yet. Movie's going to be easy. TV show's going to be easy. Play could be iffy, although I certainly have a lot of Shakespeare adaptation type things to go with. So if you have recommendations for any of these categories, I would really appreciate them, but I'm not too worried about it. For the disability challenge, I feel like I'm going to hit quite a few of these throughout my reading. I read a lot of memoirs. I read a lot of general fiction where we do have disabled characters. The only thing I have to really track is that I'm getting 5 different disabilities and making sure I get to them by the end of the year. So this one I will be keeping track of throughout the year, as with everything, but I'm not too worried about making sure I hit this. I really like finding different mental health reps in books and disability in general. For the Heritage Months prompt, this is something that our government is currently in the US trying to get rid of a lot of these, but making sure to read for the current Heritage Month is something I try to do. I don't always get my reviews up within the right month because sometimes I'm lagging behind, but I do always try to at least be hitting some reading for any particular Heritage Month. So this is one that I feel like will come fairly naturally, but I will be calendaring all of these to make sure that I am prioritizing them when the months come around. It also isn't required to actually do the reading within the month, which in that case, I know for sure I would hit it, but I'm going to try to be following along with the actual months. For the translation challenge, the idea here is to hit 5 different books that have been translated from a language other than, in my case, English. This is one I feel like most years I probably hit, but I haven't been tracking my translated books as translated books for the last couple of years on my tracking grid. So I'm not sure really what percentage or what number I'm hitting in any given year. I definitely, off the top of my head, have a few that I plan to get to, but if you have any recommendations of translated fiction, things that weren't originally written in English, I would love to get recs for this as well. For around the year, the idea is to find a book set in each of these regions of the world, continents of the world, and or authors who are from these places. Antarctica is just a bonus. It's not a requirement. So we'll see if I hit that. I have read a couple books that take place at least in part in Antarctica. So we'll see if I can hit that one. But for sure, the rest of them I'm not too worried about, being that I will be kicking off this challenge in Africa, since I will be in Zanzibar shortly after the date this challenge actually begins for the year. I figure maybe I should start with Africa. For the even bigger rainbow, basically this is a cover challenge. It's the idea to find covers that primarily or heavily feature each of these colors. I love playing color spinner wheels to pick my books and different challenges like that, so I don't think this will be a problem for me to hit kind of naturally throughout the year, but there's always a color or two that wind up being a challenge. My last spinner wheel video, I had a lot of orange, or specifically light orange, and that was a challenge. So I'm sure at some point I'll be scrambling to fill one or two less colors. For Make a Quote, the idea was to pick a quote, and then we need to find enough books to have all of these words in the title. I wanted to make my quote bookish. I wanted it to be something that I actually like. So the quote I'm going with is from Alice Hoffman: "Books may well be the only true magic." I think all of these words should be fairly easy. I did take it fairly easy on myself in general, I think, with this quote. Some people are going all out with super long quotes, so more power to them. I started with a couple that I liked, and none of the words were books I could find a title, so I did scrap a couple ideas early on. But this one I really do like, and it's one that I think is very doable. The Spooky Creatures Challenge is really interesting. I read a lot of spooky books, so I feel like I should hit some of these pretty easily. I think the ones that are currently a challenge in my mind are zombie, because I just did a whole vlog about zombies and read a bunch of the books that were on my radar as zombie books. So I need to find another one for that. So recommendations for zombies, let me know. Otherwise, I feel like I can find things for these fairly easily. Between my fantasy and my horror reading, those two genres should make this a fairly simple prompt. We'll see if I wind up eating my words on that one. Become the Avatar. The idea is to find earth, water, air, and fire on the cover of a book. And there's two options, two ways to go with this. You can either find the element appearing on a cover visually, or you can actually find the word on the cover. And I feel like the word on the cover is the more challenging route, so that's the one I'm going to try to take. But I may wind up trying to do both if I can accomplish it. So the idea is I need to find then water in a title, air in a title, earth in a title, and fire in a title. I feel like it's doable. You are allowed to do kind of compound words. Is that the right word I'm looking for? Like waterfall would work, I think Q said. But you couldn't count a word like fair because it has AIR in it. That's not the same thing. That's the idea I'm looking for. So we'll be making a point to look for those types of titles. And then the next thing is the Readathon challenge. And this one is to participate in some sort of other readathon. And there are many that I participate in any given year, and I could use any of them to fulfill this prompt. But I decided I wanted to try something new this year, so I am going to be participating in the 52 Book Club's Connections Challenge. It's a summer reading challenge, and basically it's kind of like a scavenger hunt where the first prompt has you look at the book you just read, and you have to pick a new book based on that, and so on and so forth for the next 20 books. I will, of course, have that link down below. I am planning to turn this into a little vlog series, do all of my choices kind of live as I'm filming, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So that's 20 more books that are getting added to the challenge for this particular square on the board. Next up are animals, and this is a pro animal house, of course, but for this particular challenge, we need to read for different categories of animals. We have house animals like Kylie. We have exotic pets like Kylie in a costume. No, probably not. An exotic pet, a farm animal, a wild animal, and an animal you would find in the zoo. So I feel like this shouldn't be too challenging. So we'll see about that. I'm not sure. Farm animal maybe is something that originally I thought would be a challenge, but I think she's included horses in there, which for fantasy, I feel like that comes up quite a lot. Other than that, I'm not sure. It's one of those, if I luck into them, great. If not, I might be scrambling to find some of these at the end. So again, recommendations, please feel free to leave them down below. For the queer alphabet, this is again one where I feel like a lot of these I will kind of naturally find a lot of the fantasy reading that I get from my book boxes will hit some of these targets. Beyond that, I'm going to have to do some research on a few of them. There are some that I'm not sure about in terms of if I already have books on my shelves or not, so I'm happy to expand what I own in order to meet the requirements for this challenge and hit all of these different categories. The next challenge is to pick a favorite prompt from last year's challenge. And since I didn't do last year's challenge, there are a lot of options here. And I think what I'm going to try to do is the very first one on the board, which is to read a 500+ page novel in less than 24 hours. So that's going to require me to actually focus on a single book in a day. It's doable, but I can't be juggling 5 books at a time like I normally am. So this will be a challenge, but also a doable one. For the BIPOC author challenge, the idea here is to read 10 books by BIPOC authors. This will not be a problem. It just needs to be 10 different authors. Again, not a problem. I definitely hit this in my reading for the year. Could my numbers improve? Yes, but I don't have any worries about hitting the 10 needed here. The new release challenge is one that I'm not too worried about. Also, given that I do pick up a lot of pre-orders, I do pick up a lot of ARCs, and I do make a point of reading them close enough to publication date to get my reviews out. And the goal for this is to get things within 60 days. So either 60 days before, in the case of an ARC, or within 60 days of publication, if it's a new release. So you have a kind of 4-month spread of when you can read these to count it for these particular months for this challenge. So with that, I'm not worried. I just need to remember to track which ones I read and make sure I hit books for all of the months along the way. The next tab is for challenging yourself, and it's to create a personal challenge for the year. And I've gone back and forth a little bit on what I want this to be, but I kind of thought about what my goals were at the beginning of the year and what I still need to be working on. And I feel like I've got my 1 nonfiction a month under control, my short stories every month under control. Series are still an area where I'm not catching up. So my goal, I think, is going to be 20 series either need to be caught up or finished by the end of this challenge year. And with that, I haven't 100% decided if I'm going to get to pick all the books or the series I'm going to focus on, or if I'm going to use some sort of randomizer, or maybe I'll do a hybrid and maybe randomly select 10 of them and 10 I get to pick. The reason being, I could easily pick 20 series where I only have 1 book that is needed. And then there are some series where I have like 15 books to finish a series. So to make it fair and to make it a challenge, I may go for like a hybrid approach. If you have any thoughts on how I could do that or what you would want to see from me on that, absolutely weigh in. I would love some extra opinions, but that's where I'm going with this. This is something that needs to be a challenge. It is a challenge. I start so many series thanks to my book boxes, and then I don't go back to the sequels, or I just get distracted with other things and I forget too much about book 1 to continue on without rereading book 1. So for this particular challenge, I will allow myself rereads. It's not going to fall into the same category of you need points to reread a book. If I need to reread book 1 to finish a series, that is allowable. Speaking of nonfiction, this is another category where I don't think will be a big problem to hit. We're just meant to be reading 5 different nonfiction of kind of different subgenres of nonfiction. And since my goal is to read at least 1 book every month for nonfiction, I think I should hit this. I just have to make sure I don't read a memoir that's exactly kind of within that same category every month for the rest of the year. I need to, pick up some that are about a product or about a company or, something a little bit different to get some variety into my nonfiction, but that should not be an issue. And then last but not least is Q's reviews. So with this, I just have to kind of be watching her shorts, her vlogs, her mini reviews, what have you, to make sure I get some books. She reads a lot. I'm not too worried about finding things that she's reading that I have interest in. I've already seen her review a couple that have me intrigued. So throughout the year, I'm sure I will find some more to pick up. So that is my plan. I am very excited to get going on this. I have a few books on my vacation TBR that'll already get me some points and some things to log. I've definitely got July TBR books that will fit some of these categories. And I'm really eager to see as the year goes along how I'm doing. Am I hitting enough prompts each month that I'm going to be on target to actually finish this? Or am I going to fall behind? That's my big worry, is with an extra spreadsheet, with an extra tracking mechanism. I love tracking. I love spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I can fall off them a little bit. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen with this one. And maybe I will do some sort of kind of quarterly update or update at the half-year mark just to see how things are going and re-motivate myself to get my act together if I am at all falling behind. Let me know in the comments below, are you participating in this challenge? Are there any categories here where you have suggestions for me? I would love to hear all the things. And do you indeed think this is the hardest ever reading challenge? And do you have confidence in me pulling it off? And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me a random farm animal emoji. Why that category? I don't know. It's just the one I thought of. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it. And subscribe if you're interested in my HRCYED progress, my book reviews, and my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.